For page 32, it says a whole bunch of stuff that really means nothing. It says blah, blah, blah. It takes the time it takes a car to accelerate from a complete stop to a speed of 60 miles per hour is based on velocity v in meters per second, the car's average power p in watts, and the mass of the car m in kilograms. Realistically, they didn't even have to write that sentence because it helps you like nothing, okay? But they do give you this. V equals 3pt over m, and there's a big square root sign there. Which of the following gives the value of t? Time in seconds in terms of vp and m. You could just cross out the part that says the time in seconds, blah, blah, blah. All you got to know is where it asks what is the value of t. Okay, so I know that I need to solve for t. So the first thing I ask you guys all the time is, what's ugly about this thing? Okay, and it's going to be the square root. So how do you get rid of it? You square it. But if you do that, you got to do it to the other side. So now this is going to be v squared, and this is just going to be a regular 3pt over m. If you want to solve for the t, you have to isolate for the t. So what you could do is put a 1 under here, and now you got two fractions and an equal sign in the middle. You could cross multiply. Okay, so you got v squared m equals 3pt. If you want to isolate for the t, divide out the 3p, divide out the 3p. That's going to cross out. So t is going to equal this right here, which ends up being answer D, v squared m over 3p. The next question, number 9, on that same page. It says the formula for acceleration can be expressed as d equals vt plus half a to the t squared, where d is the distance traveled, v is the initial velocity, t is the time taken, and a is the acceleration. That part, they didn't even have to write. It doesn't help you anything, okay? Which of the following expresses a in terms of dv and t? So just cross out in terms of dv and t, and instead just look for a. So we need to isolate for the a, all right? The easiest part that we could begin in this isolation process, because we want to get this is all multiplied by all these, but this one is a plus sign, so we could take this chunk and move it over. Okay, so how do you do that? You're going to subtract out vt, and this is going to be d minus vt, so that's going to cross out. So now we just have d minus vt equals half a t squared. Okay, so the next thing that you could do is multiply both sides by a 2 so that these cross out. Multiply this by a 2. Okay, so once you do that, you got to distribute it. So it's going to be 2d minus 2vt equals a to the t squared. Okay, so if you want to isolate again for the a, what do? Is you divide out the t squared, and then you're going to divide out t squared on both of these. Now we're going to have those cross out. So now we have a equals, can we reduce anything further on this side? You can. There's a t right here and 2 t's down here. So you cross that out, and you could cross one of those out. So it'll be 2d over t squared minus 2v over t. And the answer for that would be A. The last question on this page is number 13. This one looks crazy. They give you the distance formula. They say there's points x1, y1, and then there's x2, y2. And then those numbers are already in the distance formula, okay, which is going to be x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Which of the following gives the value of y1? Okay, so we want to find out what is y1 and then cross the rest of that other stuff out. Okay, so if you look at this question, okay, this 2 is down in here. You should ask yourself, what's ugly about this? The numbers are already here. You see x1 is here, x2 is here, y1 is here, y2 is here. So you got to ask yourself, what's ugly about this question? And it is going to be that there is this square root sign. So what do you do to get rid of a square root? You square that. whatever you square on that side, you got to square on this side. So now it's going to be d squared equals regular x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Okay? And we want to solve for y1. y1 is right here. Okay? So this is all in a parenthesis, so let's try to move over this part right here. How do we move this over? This is a positive, so we're going to go minus x minus, we're going to minus this whole thing out and take it over to the other side. So d minus this quantity x minus that. Okay? So now we have that, and that's going to equal y to the 1 minus y2, this whole quantity. Okay, so all we did was we literally just took this and we subtracted the whole blob of it, and we moved it over to the other side. By the way, there's a d squared down there. Okay? And then after that, you're trying to isolate for the y. So you got to think, what's blocking you from moving any of this? It's this thing right here. Okay? So when we have that, what do? You have to square root it. Okay? If we could square root this, then all of this would just become a regular y1 minus y2. And then right over here, we got to square root that. So that's going to be d squared minus quantity, this. But now that's square rooted. And how do you further solve for the y1? You just add y2 over here plus y2. So that crosses out, and basically, I'm not going to rewrite the whole thing. This is your answer. And which one looks like this answer? You see it in A. It's d squared minus this quantity, and then added to it. It's not included under the square root, but on the side is plus y2.